Hey up Leeds! Tony Lambert is a project lead on Bringing It All Back Home, a mental health project using music as a resource. Together they've made the Lockdown album with help from members of Embrace and Kaiser Chiefs. I had a right laugh chatting with Tony, especially about the controversial topic, we're all Leeds, aren't we? Have a listen. On this coronavirus extraordinary episode of the Light on Leeds podcast, I have Tony Lambert, who's remotely connected to speak to me. Hello, Tony.
Good afternoon. Hi, Hazel. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. On this, it's just starting to get dark and feeling a little bit cold. Got my radiators on, got snuggled up. How are you?
I'm good. I've got my windows, my curtains are still open, but my fire is on, so I've got a nice roaring fire, which I think you can hear.
Oh.
You said you could hear something before we got connected.
Yeah, I could hear little clicks. Yeah, I think it must have been your fire. Have you got an open fire?
I've got a wood burner. Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
It keeps me together on an evening.
Oh, lovely smell and a lovely heat.
Indeed.
Good for you. And so, Tony, you are here today to talk to me about a project that you have on the go where you work with Bringing It All Back Home. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Probably more than you want to hear, really. I'll keep talking until they tell me to shut up.
Okay.
Yeah, I run a project. I think I'm officially classed as the project lead. I've never been officially handed that title. I think I made it up myself. Yeah, mental health project using music as a resource, using human connection and, the power of really, really close relationships, which music making tends to encourage, really. And it's been going a couple of years and has continued through this, shall we say, interesting year that we've had.
Yeah. How has that affected the way that you run things?
Well, on day one of the lockdown, I actually sort of thought I need to look after myself, and I kind of closed ranks a little bit and studied what I might need over a period of isolation maybe, or disconnection from various things, sorted myself out, and then turned round to all the staff and a week or two later and said, right, what are we going to do? How are we going to get this back online? And luckily, loads of people in my team who are young and cool and know how to work computers, and I've got sound engineers, and they're just an amazing team, and they just said we'll go online. So we've been doing Zooms, we've recorded an album during lockdown via email, via Zoom, via telephone, in parks, by riverbanks, in people's gardens. We've just done whatever we've needed to do, and the album was finished 2 days ago.
Wow, that's really soon. And what's the album called?
As snappy titles go, it's probably going to be called the Lockdown Album. We haven't really come up with a better name because pretty much everything we do this year is centred on the loss that people are experiencing, and we just thought we wouldn't try and be clever. So yeah, Bringing It All Back Home, the Lockdown Album. There's 14 songs in total. There's kind of 13 on the album and one extra one, a single that we're going to release and try and push in the newspapers and in the media and stuff like that. So get some light shone on our project.
Yeah, of course. And did you find, Tony, that the way you had to work during this time and how you've had to create that album in all the various different ways you just explained, do you think it gave the whole thing a different quality or added anything to it?
I think people initially, including myself, were sort of a bit suspicious as to whether it would work. And I accepted early on that this wasn't about... the project itself is don't tell anybody this, but I actually don't think the project's about music. We use music all of the time. It's just a tool we use to be connected to people, and that's the power of how, if people have got something meaningful to do, but they do it with other people who they can get on with and do business with, then the world can be a better place. And we just happen to use music. Some people use art, some people use football, some people use books, there's lots of different resources to use. I initially thought, you know what, the quality of the music might be a bit poo. It might actually be really substandard. We work in a studio, we've got state-of-the-art equipment, and now suddenly we're using telephones to record vocals down. And yet I was wrong. The quality of the music is superb. It's absolutely superb. People have worked incredibly hard. Oh. People have been really creative, resourceful, inventive. There's an ingenuity that's come to the fore, and it has got an eclectic quality because it's got maybe 10 different artists on the album. But the fact that I know how it was made, I sat by the River Wharf through Wetherby. I recorded a bass line on the riverbank with a guy just playing bass and plugged into my computer. And for me to know that, it makes this recording really special.
Yeah, all the different ways you had to work to get it together.
Absolutely.
So how did you choose the people that you featured on the album? Are these people that you've been working with for quite some time?
We have a community, quite a small community, but we tended to want to call people something other than clients. And we only came up with the word muso. So people who come to studios, people who are interested in gigs, people who are interested in music, who really, really would struggle without music in their lives are called musos. You know what I mean? That's kind of universal term. And
Yeah, of course.
and so we called our punters, we call them musos. There's a small community that was up to about 30 when we started lockdown, and it's reduced a little bit. We've had people some people have drifted away, some people we've lost touch with, some people who've said, oh, I don't go out at all and I've not got a phone. So we work quite hard to get quite a lot of people online as well, get them phones, get them laptops, get them tablets and stuff, and that was quite difficult. But because we are funded to work in a particular way, and then suddenly we had to work in a different way, trying to find, £100 here and £100 there to buy someone a tablet, it was just prohibitive, really. So we had to beg and steal and borrow. We didn't steal. I just want to say that again. We didn't steal.
Okay.
And also, we did a lot of walking in parks and, chats in gardens and stuff like that, just to stay connected. And now we're doing that again. We're doing that again in this current lockdown, because we've had to shut the studio and we're not allowed to have people visiting. Once again, we're meeting in parks. I walk down the canal once a week with somebody, and then I go to another park, and just to keep that human connection. And we'll wait until we're allowed to make music again. And we've also, very recently, went and borrowed some stuff back that I'd lent to a friend years ago, which was guitars with amplifiers already in them. So we've got a couple of instruments that they've actually got speakers in the guitar themselves. You can make horrendous noises wherever you go, and we're going to go out into the world and try and do sort of little sessions in the middle of nowhere, with a drum machine and an electric guitar and electric bass, and people singing in fields, Kirkstlabbie, Roundhay Park, wherever it is we kind of think is appropriate to go. Kirkstlabbie don't know we're coming yet, but I'm going to get permission to go, hopefully, into the main transept. Yeah, Elland Road as well. That's kind of somewhere else we've been thinking about. Elland Road have given us permission just before this current lockdown. They said we could come and film in the middle of the pitch just to do a daft video for a song. And they said, yeah, why
that'd be
not?
great, wouldn't it?
And then lockdown, the lockdown's kind of kicked that into touch for, this past month. So hopefully we're going to get back in touch again next week and see where the land lies and whether they'll let us get on with that.
But it's great that you have been doing all of these things and keeping people connected. It's something that people need, isn't it, in this time?
I mean, I've been a mental health worker and a nurse and a crisis worker, and I've trained as a counsellor, and I've been involved in human contact work for decades, and this is the first time that I feel as though my resources, they're actually what people want. And, other than sitting in a counselling room and being real, which I find really powerful, and to be doing meaningful activities just has a value to it that, you can't really put a price on it. It does save lives. It keeps people grounded and real and purposeful. And we had to do that any way we could, really. And, don't get me wrong, people are struggling. I'm struggling. Many of my staff and team are as well. And that's a really interesting dynamic when you're a caregiver, a support worker. You tend to leave an awful lot of your emotional content, or your private life, should I say. You kind of tend to leave that to one side, whereas it's actually to the fore now. Everybody's got their own experience of this past few months, and it's sitting in our cells, bubbling under the surface all of the time. And how you manage to support somebody else whilst you're experiencing your own distress, that's an interesting dynamic.
I think you're right about that. I think for me personally, I work at the University of Leeds. I work with a great bunch of people, and in general, we would be organising the big medical exams for Year 4 students, and that side of my job, it's quite stressful, but I really enjoy it. And at the end of it, we work as a team for months and months and months to prepare everything. And then at the end, it's great because you can stand in this room and look at everything and just think, look what we've achieved. And I really feel like, as much as we do, meetups on Teams and things like that, and have little meetings and things, I really am missing. As much as I like working from home, I'm really missing being part of a team and having something to work towards.
And focus is something that gets really challenged, because we've spent all of our lives knowing how we build up to kind of bring our focus into focus, so to speak. You know what I mean? How you address and then achieve something has a certain mechanism to it in life. And then suddenly the rules, the tools, everything changes. And in my world, one of the things that's really quite challenging about online work is the nuance of how emotions move across a room. And when they're on a screen, they're compromised. I was talking to my friend this morning. I was out for a walk with her, and she's a therapist, and she has to work with clients in masks. Well, what's not being seen, what's not being conveyed, these are incredibly important things that are missing in people's lives. And touch. I mean, I've had physical contact with probably every client I've ever had, and then suddenly it's gone. It's not allowed. So the compromise, the challenge, the threat to well-being is enormous, and we may not see the outcomes of that for quite some time, because the figures are, the really sad figures of how people do or don't get through things don't rise into the public domain for quite some time. So we'll probably see what this year did to us mental health wise over the next year to 2 years, and it's not going to be happy reading. We already know, but it's a problem that's bubbling away. Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. There's just and there's just so many aspects of it for each individual person or even organisation. There are so many things that are affected by all of this and that have knock-on effects, like you say. So whilst you were making your lockdown album, and did you have people come to you and offer to do a song, or did you go to them? And how did they choose what songs they were going to perform in and what style they were going to do it in?
Most of the musos, the service using people, were working on something, whether it was a live choir, whether it was, recording a few songs they'd written themselves at home, whether it was just making dance music, loads of different types of music was being made, live stuff. We were gigging as well. We'd done a couple of gigs, various bands and stuff. So these people were in front of me when lockdown happened, and when the idea of an album came to the fore, we had quite a lot of demos made and stuff like that. And I said, right, I want to start again. I want everything to be made in lockdown, which a lot of people went, whoa, we've got all these songs kind of semi-recorded. And I said, look, just see what you can do. So it is a true reflection of March to December, really. It's a very eclectic album, very, very eclectic.
Yeah.
And there are, there's dance music, there's instrumental rock music, there is folk music, there is spoken word, there's pop tunes. It's broad, it's very broad, and it sits together really nicely as well. And then we thought, we've kind of gone under the radar, so to speak, for a couple of years. We haven't needed to tell anybody who we are. Initially, what I did was I went out into the world and I spoke to people at day centres and I said, look, this is what I do. I run a mental health project. It's really small. It's really fledgling, new type thing. Will you let your client group know that I do this? And people knock on the door the next day, and they're still coming. They're still coming 2 years later. And so I didn't need to look for clients right across the whole period of the volunteer. There was a period before I got funded where I was volunteering, and those people who were coming then are still coming now. And what we decided to do was we thought, well, we'd better start thinking about the end of our funding cycle, which is at the end of 2021. We will need more funding in 22. And I said, right, well, we need to go out into the world and tell the world who we are and try and drum up some support. And so I was thinking about this idea, and I saw a message on Facebook. Somebody was looking for a webcam. I had a webcam sitting around I couldn't use because it wouldn't fit my computer. And I said, you can have this. I dropped it off at the guy's house, and he offered some help. Now, he just happens to be really closely connected to us, and he's also quite a well-known musician. And he said, I'll help any way I can. And I said, well, I'll be using your name and reputation if that's all right, because I'm thinking about something for Christmas, basically.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, and he bought into the idea. And what we then did was we built a band around him. So he's the drummer, we've got a guitarist, a bass player, and a keyboard player. We built that band, and then we put our choir on top of it. And we've recorded, the REM song, Everybody Hurts. When your day is long.
Oh, yeah.
We've recorded that. And It's just been finished this week. It sounds astonishing. I adore it. And it is, again, it's a true reflection of 20 to 30 people who are all in separate rooms, who've all come together to record something beautiful. And the drummer and the guitarist are from the band Embrace, and the bass player and the keyboard player are from the Kaiser Chiefs.
Oh, wow.
And these are bands that we kind of know because, we're a music studio and stuff like that. And they've been incredible. I mean, genuinely incredible. They're having a tough time themselves. Work for musicians has all but dried up. And these guys they've given such valuable time to kind of saying, do you know what? There's a mental health project here. It's doing some, I'll put my name to it. And they've given us their reputation as well as their musical pieces. And it's all come together, and I'm so grateful. So you've got Rick and Mike from Embrace, and you've got Peanut and Simon from Kaiser Chiefs, who've just been, totally incredible. I'm so grateful to them for what they've done. And we'll see what comes about. We're going to release it, as I say, mid-December, hopefully in a blaze of glory. And yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, that sounds great. Where will people be able to get that, Tony?
We're going to, you know what we're going to do? We're going to give it away for free.
Oh, wow.
And the reason being, it's complicated. Music law is complicated. We've got two big Yorkshire bands. We've put together this Yorkshire supergroup. We've got those guys who are playing on it for free. We've got a song that we don't own. It's owned by REM. We've got all of the lawyers who protect REM. We've got PRS, PPL, and mechanical rights and all that. We thought, rather than going into all of that, why don't we just use it to promote us?
Yeah.
So people will be able to stream it, probably on Spotify and, iTunes, wherever, all those normal platforms. But we will have a Bandcamp page. So Bandcamp, a specific kind of more, I would say, more musician-friendly site, which gives musicians more of the the monies that come in, where Spotify will pay very little to musicians. And Bandcamp will give large percentages to the actual artist. So we're going to put our album onto Bandcamp. We're going to use the Everybody Hurts song to direct traffic to that. And yeah, somebody mentioned the amount of the saturation at this time of year in the market of music for Christmas is huge. But you know what? I think we can hold our own. I think we'll get what we want from it, which is to say, hello, we're here. This is what we do. And this is being made by people, A, who are high profile guys who really want to help, and B, people who are really struggling, who are vulnerable, who are getting through every day and yet wanted to make something beautiful. And they have. It's exquisite. It's beautiful. So yeah, very pleased.
Yeah, it sounds amazing, Tony. It just sounds like such a great thing. Well, as soon as you have links to all of that sort of thing, let me know and I can edit the podcast page so that people can click through and go and have a listen.
Great stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, get involved.
That would be really good. Any help we can get at all would just be amazing. Just really, really be fantastic. Thank you.
Tony, I suspect from your accent that you have not lived in Leeds your entire life.
No, I've also lived in Harrogate and Ripon. I'm from Gateshead. I'm from, where the Angel of the North is? Well, I'm from just below that, like underneath the village underneath that, basically. Yeah, a tiny little village near Gateshead. I was born up there in County Durham and grew up on Tyneside. And
have you lived in Leeds for a long time?
Oh, early 90s. I trained as a nurse in Gateshead, and then I was off my face basically at the end of my training, and I just drifted out of Gateshead. I drifted down the M1, and then I think I met somebody and moved in with a lady in Leeds in 1992, I think, and I never went home. I did. I went home to get a guitar, and then I came back. So yeah, I've been here for all them years. My son is 23, so I've been here quite a long time, yeah.
Yeah, quite a long time. So you are definitely...
The accent's mellowed, by the way. This.
I think I recognise your accent because I'm also from County Durham.
Ah, whereabouts are you from?
Stanley.
Oh, well, I'm from Birtley.
Oh, not far at all.
Down the hill. Sort of Chestley Street, yeah.
I could have waited.
God, Hazel, everyone's going to go, oh, God, yawn. This is about Leeds, people. Come on. Two Geordies talking about the North East.
Well, it was leading to ask you, to saying that you completely qualified to answer the 3 questions that I always ask guests. And the first one being, what would you say, Tony, is something that you think is great about the city of Leeds?
I saw this question and I thought, is there something political about this because I'm not from here? Because actually one of the things I thought about saying was related to the fact that probably I'm not from here. I mean, it's my home now. Leeds is my home. I don't feel like I'm from some. Well, I know where I'm from, but it's only 90 mile away. It's not like I kind of go, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool northerner and this is the south and all. I've took the like everybody else about regional dialects and regional cultures and all that kind of thing. But I'm kind of a bit tired of all that now. It's my home and I've worked here. I've supported the communities here. I've been supported by the communities here. It's got, do you know what? I'll be honest. If I lived in Birmingham or I lived in Edinburgh or I lived in Penzance, I think people, it's just about people, isn't it? I think the city's got it's growing. I very rarely go into the city centre. I'm not really interested in city centres, and it's growing. It's growing probably too quick for its own good. It's building lots and lots of buildings, and the minute we hit austerity, you think, oh well, how's this all going to be kind of sustained? I don't know. I'm maybe not interested in that kind of politics, but I don't particularly think it's kind of like all the building that's being done is beautiful and pretty, but there's some gorgeous parts of Leeds and buildings that I adore. And it's got a rich history of, in terms of, Victorian Industrial Revolution kind of time.
So, Tony, the second question that I always ask guests on the Light and Leeds podcast is, what do you think is something that is not so great about the city? I feel like you might have covered that a little bit.
I tell you what's really annoying me at the moment is, when they paint, this is going to seem so picky, but I'm obviously not from the town, and I want this to be taken within the context of people might think it's just purely because of that, because it's kind of football related. But I'm not really into football. I used to support Newcastle when I was a kid, and I kind of followed them and all that. And I'm really pleased for Leeds doing what they've done, and it's amazing. It's always best to have your city in the top flight. It's good for the town, isn't it? And it's good for the people that cheers people up and stuff. But I want them to stop painting telephone exchange wiring boxes with white and yellow and blue and saying we are all Leeds. I want them to stop doing that because, first of all, we're not all Leeds. We are all allowed to identify as who we are, what we are. I don't want to be told what I am, especially when it's not true. Most people probably aren't that, into football enough to want it blazoned all over the city. And I work really near Elland Road. There's a real strong kind of, for years there's always been kind of, posters and stuff like that round. I couldn't give a monkeys. Everyone needs to advertise, and it's great. I think Leeds United is brilliant. Having a big business organisation like a football club in your town that's doing well is brilliant. And my son's from Leeds, and he's a Leeds United fan. Fab, great. But it's when you start painting all over town these telephone exchange boxes, I think they could reflect, they do, a lot of them do reflect lots of things going on in smaller areas of the community. But I'm just sick of seeing them going, we are all Leeds, we are all Leeds. It's just like, no, we're not. Because it is football related. It is football related. It's just like, no, do you know what? No, I'm not actually. I'm not all Leeds because they're not saying Leeds, they're saying we're all Leeds United, and I'm just not. I just couldn't give a monkeys. So yeah, it strikes me as a bit kind of like a bit. I don't know. It's just a bit. I don't know. I think being into football is great, and playing football is incredible. It's something people should be encouraged to do. It's very good for you. But bandying stuff like that around, I just find a bit. Yeah, it's not really for me.
I kind of see what you mean, but I've spent years and years with a son. I've got a son myself who's 22, and he's spent his whole life supporting Leeds United, and I live in Beeston, and sometimes I'd listen to what was going on at Elland Road just to try and gauge what his face would be like when he came in the house. And so I'm quite happy for the whole, even though I'm not really particularly bothered about football, I'm quite happy for the whole of town to be painted up with it, because finally I could see my son be happy and get to enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Hazel, we were getting on so well. Do you know what? It's like one of them moments on Room 101 where someone's going, I'm not putting that in Room 101, look. Come on, Hazel. Come. Do you know what? Just near where I live in Kirkstall, and I was driving along Kirkstall Road, and there was some really cute kids near the school on the bottom road near where the Nettos what used to be, and they're painting the wall. It's beautiful. It's really, really, and it's cheery. And I even thought, you know what, if there wasn't a pandemic, I'd go to McDonald's and I'd give them 50 quid and say, go and feed those kids. You know what I mean? It was like, it's really cute watching them all paint. And then I drove past today and they finished, and a major part of the wall is a massive Leeds flag. And I just think, no, stop it.
You'd have walked up
There's
to them.
More to life in football.
You'd have walked up to them with the burgers and then quickly walked away again.
There's this idea of like, yeah. There's this idea of like, we're back. And I just thought, oh, bless you. Are you going to paint over if they get, God forbid, if they got relegated next season? That would be awful. People have to paint over. Oh, I know. And maybe I'm just not qualified or allowed to speak about Leeds United because I'm not from Leeds. But, anyway, I did take my child to Leeds, and he is a Leeds United fan, so I have taken him there. So that gets me something.
So at least you've done something. I always ask guests as well the last question, which is, if somebody had lived in Leeds for a very long time, would you be able to tell them about something that you would consider to be a hidden gem that they might never have heard of?
Well, when I thought about this, I thought, well, there's something paradoxical about that question, because if it's a hidden gem and I enjoy it, would I want it to be sort of trampled over by, a massive tourist population who suddenly go, oh my God, look at this? I think...
I've had that answer before, to be honest.
Well, right, okay. There is a building near where I work. I work in Holbeck. And Holbeck, where our studio sits, it's all Chapel Studios in Holbeck. We sit on this kind of, what's the word, like a juxtapose kind of thing. We look to the left and there's the richest properties in Leeds. We look to the right and there's the poorest area in Leeds. You know what I mean? People really struggle, the clash of those two things is really quite stark. And then across the road from where we are, there's a big goods yard, a big kind of train depot kind of goods yard thing. And around the back of there, there's an old library. And I think it's possibly one of the most beautiful buildings I've ever seen.
Is it the really bright orange brick one?
Oh, yeah, the richness of those reds. It's just gorgeous. And when you look at things like that, I mean, I've just been up in Mythenroyd this morning walking. I don't know whether I'm allowed to do that. Restrictions. Anyway, I did. Be somebody knocking on my door soon. And I went up there for a walk up in the hills and stuff. And when you see, tiny little enclaves of villages that were built, 150 years ago, there's a church, there's a school, there are some mill buildings, there are this, that, and the other, and they're all clumped together. And then you see the 21st century, the 20th century built around it. But then the further you go into the countryside, you sometimes see just those old buildings and they've been repurposed and they're no longer schools or chapels or whatever. And I don't know what that building is in Holbeck. And it's right now in the middle of Holbeck, goods yard, all them industrial areas. And it's this beacon of beauty. Of architecture. I don't know if it's a library or if it's offices or what. I don't know. But do you know what? I drive past it.
I think it's offices at the minute.
Right, okay.
It's absolutely stunning. I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, I often come off the motorway, or I'll sometimes kind of come back to Leeds and kind of go an extra little junction and then come past that building and I see it. So there's something about I tell you as well, when I go up to the northeast, when I go over the river up to places like Wrighton, which is kind of further up the river towards Hexham from Newcastle, there's a lot of buildings round there, and they sort of spark my memories of places I've seen in West Yorkshire. And I think that's harking back to that industrial revolution where you had these two big power centres, Bradford, Leeds, here, Manchester maybe, then you had the northeast with the trains and the industry and stuff like that. And the same people were probably designing and building buildings and houses and stuff like that. So you see similarities. And I think the town where George Stevenson's from, I went there to see an old friend of mine from school a few years ago, and I saw these buildings and I thought, it just reminds me of places like Salt Air and, old parts of Bradford and stuff like that. So, when you go back in time, when those things have survived, you know what I mean, that there can be similarities 100 miles apart. So that kind of warms my heart that we're still using old buildings like that. That really. So yeah, I guess. I like to find peace and quiet, and I used to live near Ramsay Park, and I loved walking from my house around the park and through the woods and back. And I think that's a gem in a city, to be able to find sort of peace and quiet in a busy town. And I guess now I live near sort of Kirkstall Abbey and the woods around here, and it's just really nice to kind of be able to get away, and because walking in countryside is kind of one of my things, really. It's kind of what I like to do. So I said, didn't I? I'm not really a towny sort of person, really.
Yeah. So I always ask guests if they're, obviously with you, you've got all sorts of music at your fingertips, and you have chosen a track. It's a cover of Mad World, and it's by Stoneblower. Why have you gone for this particular one?
Right, so Stoneblower, the goods yard that I was on about, right, opposite the studio, we used to sit out, look out the window when we had a break in between playing music and stuff. We'd look out into the goods yard, and there'd be guys working in their orange suits and stuff like that. And there's this yellow train used to sit there every day. We put a band together in the studio, a bunch of guys who were coming down. There's about 7 of them, and guys not being a gendered term, there was females in that group as well, but and we said, right, we need a name for your band. You're going to start gigging, you're going to start recording. And then somebody just said Stoneblower, and everybody went, okay, I don't hate that. What? Okay, why have you said that? And I said, hang on a minute, that name, that word rings a bell. Why? And he pointed out the window, and there is literally a train over the road. It's just been moved recently. It's not there anymore. And it's a big yellow thing. It's like a working tool train, and it's to blow stones off the track. So when they build tracks, they then drop all of those grey stones round the metal track and round the sleepers. Then they send this train out, and it literally blows air and blows the stones off the metal track, so the trains, can carry on. So that's why they're called Stoneblower, because we used to rehearse and look out at the train Stoneblower. We recorded Mad World because at the time when we said, what songs do we want to play? They work in they come to visit a mental health project, and they said, we want to do Mad World, and lots of people were into that. I shouldn't say this. I'm a Tears for Fears aged kind of person, so I remember the original Tears for Fears version, which is, is a work of monumental magnificence.
Yeah, me too.
And then people are going, Gary Jules, it's by Gary Jules. It's not by Gary Jules. So it's come up again in the Donnie Darko film. So you've got 2 generations of people who are kind of really getting off on the same thing, really, which is the melody and the chords and stuff. Yeah. We started to play it. We went down the middle. We kind of turned it into a big guitar-y kind of version. And yet you can hear bits of both songs, I think, in our version of it. And because of the context of where it was recorded and who it was recorded by, Mad World's kind of got its own significances, and it's going to be the song that leads our album. It'll be the first song on the album, and it's just a really fun song to record. This, I think you've probably got. It's
a brilliant track. I really enjoyed listening to it. I thought it was great.
I think I've sent you an MP3, but I think one of my colleagues has sent you possibly an updated version. So this might be even nearer to finish than I remember.
Yeah, I think I'm getting that on Monday.
Smashing. So we're going to hear the one it's just before, So great song. Love it to bits. Love the band.
And what will you be doing with the rest of your evening?
I'm going to eat at some point. I'm going to do some emails because I've had a bit of a look after me kind of day today. And I needed to get out and get some fresh air. So I'm going to do some emails. I'm going to starting to think about building my media push. I've got some really real quality help coming my way to help me with the media and the PR and stuff for the album and the single. So I'm going to start making some lists and jotting some stuff down about that, really.
Oh, well, that sounds all good and productive.
And I might watch some rubbish on the telly if there's anything on. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, thank you so very much for coming along and talking to me, Tony, and best of luck with the album and the single. I'll make sure I have all the links in the podcast notes so that people can click through, have a listen and get involved and help.
Thanks ever so much, Hazel. It's been nice talking to you.
You too.
I do like blowing my own trumpet.
Well, that's how you make a brilliant podcast guest, because that's exactly what we need.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care, Hazel. Bye.
What's happening in this great city? Light on Leeds. We'll tell you. But wait a minute. Light on Leeds.
It was great fun chatting to Tony. Do check the podcast notes for links to the Lockdown album on Bandcamp, because you'll just be supporting such a great initiative. Tony chose to feature a cover of Mad World from the album by Stoneblower, and I think it's ace. Have a listen.
not to blame. I can't wait until we're jamming. That bass is in, that drum is banging. A friendly face where the roll is thanking. Close the window now, hear me strumming. It's something I'm loving and want to talk about. Wanna get a wicked, wanna get a wild with a rope and scream and shout.